This is Spiritual Mamas Podcast. We're a couple of mamas out here just trying to raise kids, make it through a workday, and navigate mental health, all while going through a spiritual awakening. And we thought we'd take you with us. So grab your favorite cozy drink and let's chat. Hello.
Hello, welcome back.
I'm Aericka.
I'm Kim.
And this is Spiritual Mamas Podcast. And we're back.
Yeah. I was thinking about this before we started today. How strange it feels for me when we skip a week of recording. And we're not like, we have enough, episodes to put out or whatever. So nobody else realizes it. But we haven't met in 2 weeks to record. And it's like, this is... Okay, we had to get back into the flow of things.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, what are we doing? How are we doing it?
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't figure out how to get my microphone to work this morning, my headphones to work this morning. It's like, really? Seriously? Get it together. Yeah.
How are you today, Aericka?
I'm better. I was actually sick for like 2 weeks and still kind of sick. I had some weird respiratory thing that like took me out. And I'm kind of bummed because I was supposed to go to Utah to see my sister, and I wasn't able to do that because I was just way too sick, which actually kind of worked out because my cousin went out too, and she ended up with COVID out there. So, and then my nephew had the flu out there. So I was like, well, I was trying not to bring my cooties with me. So that's why I didn't go, but whatever. So, so I'm still like on the mend about that. But so if I sound a little meh, that's fine.
It's tough when you're like not feeling well in that way, when you're having all of the symptoms of being sick, and then if you had gone, you could have potentially gotten even more complex sickness, and that would not have been fun.
Oh yeah, the morning I was supposed to leave at like 6 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, and I was not. No, there was no way. No way. Like the thought of like walking through an airport was just like, no.
Yeah. Can't even leave my bed.
Yeah, no, basically. It was not going to happen. So, how about you?
I'm doing okay. I was telling you before we started, I've been just not sleeping well, very restless sleep, having dreams that are very much like making me feel like I'm stressed, even though I don't think I'm stressed on a day-to-day, but maybe it has something to do with what we're going to talk about today. So,
well, I was going to say that. I was like, I wonder if like it was affecting you in some way.
So interestingly enough, we're going to talk about astral projection today, and I was practicing, and I was like, okay, let me see if I can get this down. And I will say that I haven't mastered it. I haven't done it. However, I have done something, and I'm not really sure how to describe or explain what that is, but I very much have felt a shift in what I'm doing. I wish I could explain it more. I'll try to explain it as I get into it. But
interesting.
But I don't know if that has anything to do with why I'm having the dreams I'm having. Who knows?
Are you writing them down?
Some of them don't feel like they mean anything or make any sense. It's just very restless. Like last night, the dream that I was having was that me and my mom were going on a trip, and the trip for some reason was 25 hours long. Like the plane ride was 25 hours long, and we had to take like 15 like switch planes layovers, and it's just weird stuff that's like,
why?
What is this? Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's not like anything like terrible, but I wake up like stressed. So I don't know.
I'll have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, but I guess we'll get into some info on astral projection. So I am going to try to condense what I have found, because I found a lot of info on this. So we're going to try to go through like an overview. Astral projection in general can shift based on your beliefs, your practices, your culture, your understanding, your definition. And that has a lot to do with how you define the astral realm, and that can be defined differently. So one of the things that I'm going to start with is just like the different types of realms that there are. So depending on your belief system, you may see that there are only a few. If you think about Christianity, you can see heaven, hell, earth. Mm-hmm. That's it. If you think about other types of realms, and I believe, Aericka, you've mentioned this with shaman practices, mm-hmm. your journeying practices includes a lower world and upper world. So,
mm-hmm. And there's a middle world, yep.
Yeah, so there can be different realms depending on your belief system. One of the resources that I found, and I've sent you some info on this before, Dr. Kimberly Porter discusses some of the different types of metaphysical or universal realms, and she has a YouTube, and we'll link it in the notes, that goes over it in much more detail. Very basically, she mentions 6 different realms. The physical realm, that's the one that we live in, the material world that we experience daily. The etheric realm, that's a layer of energy on the physical realm. So this would be like someone's aura. If you can see their aura, that would be in the etheric realm. Okay. The astral realm is layered on top of that. This is where we would do astral projection, dreaming, emotions, spiritual experiences happen in the astral realm. So that's the one that we're going to focus on. The other 3 realms she mentions are the mental realm, where thoughts, ideas, and higher intelligence come from, the causal realm, where past lives, karma, and soul contracts are made, and then the divine realm, which is the highest spiritual plane. But we're not going to talk about any of those today.
So is kind of the idea is that, okay, let's say you have an individual, mm-hmm. and like you have these realms kind of like coming off of you, or these are just like, they're all kind of in the middle world and everything is, then there's other realms.
So the idea with this is that everything, and we've talked about energies before and frequency, and everything has a frequency. Everything has each one of these realms.
Okay.
So
interesting.
And they're all layered on top of one another. So any one person could access any one of these realms with enough practice and knowing what to do. So they exist across the board. But in this instance, we're not going to get into the higher realms, just like the astral realm. And so what I was saying before is like, what I think I've done something, I can very much experience my etheric realm when I am trying to practice astral projection. I'll get there, I'm sure, but
very interesting.
Yeah, the closest thing that I could describe what I was experiencing is like when your fingers or toes fall asleep and you have that numb feeling. That experience, almost, it's not quite the same, but almost something like that, but on my entire body.
So like almost kind of like leaving the body a little bit, but not quite leaving.
Yeah.
Very
That's
cool.
Kind of what I was experiencing. And I'm like, okay, I just need to, and the idea with this too is like, you need to be able to practice. It shouldn't, or not shouldn't, it may not take a very long time, but it does take some practice for you to be able to jump into astral projection. So
are you going to get into how to do that?
I am.
Nice. Okay.
So when we think about astral projection, the definition of it, it's the experience of leaving the body and traveling into the astral realm, which we just talked about. This term of astral projection has been used interchangeably in certain areas, like when we're talking about science, with out-of-body experience. Out-of-body experiences are ones that you don't necessarily have a choice in. In trauma, you see this in near-death experiences, sensory deprivation, if somebody's using drugs really heavily, if they're having some sort of sleep disorder, you may be having an out-of-body experience, whereas astral projection can happen involuntarily, but is frequently intentional. There is a lot of science that covers out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences, not so much astral projection.
Did you find like that in the literature that science accepts that as an issue, as something that happens, or they're saying, no, that's not what happens. Like it doesn't exist.
Astral projection?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. In the literature that I was looking at, yeah, everything across the board is like, people say they experience this, but we're not sure because we don't see the science. Or
Mm-hmm.
if they were studying out of body experiences or near death experiences, yes, they're acknowledging that astral projection is a thing, but aren't necessarily looking at it from the intentional perspective, just from the unintentional.
Have they done like brain scans, like MRIs or like PET scans when people have said that they're doing either one of these things, like out of body or astral projection? Have they done any of that? Did you see anything like that?
I didn't see anything about that. I think that would be a really difficult thing to do if you're doing research on out of body experiences or near death experiences, because those are
Mm-hmm.
unintentional.
True.
So you can't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
pinpoint it. And since they're not doing the research on astral projection,
Yeah, that would
the,
be an interesting thing to do, at
yeah.
least like from the astral projection, to do brain scans to see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, being able to see how the brain is interacting, because, and I'll get into, what you want to be doing. But the idea is that you are shutting down parts of your brain or using other
Mm-hmm.
parts of your brain. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I did want to highlight one of the one of the leading experts in some of the research and science that is coming out is Dr. Bruce Grayson. He's a psychiatrist and a professor, and he does a lot of research and has for like over 45 years done research on near death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard him being interviewed in another podcast, and it was pretty interesting. He was talking about how people would go in for surgery, and the doctor would place something on a shelf up high, whether it's in the office that they're doing the consultation in, or near the surgery room, and it's out of eyesight, so it's not something you're naturally looking at, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
something that the surgeon or the doctor would point out to the patient. And then the patient would be put under anesthesia, and they would come out, and then they'd be able to identify that thing that they saw without
Mm.
knowing that it was there.
Okay.
Um,
How did they ask that? Like, was it, oh, I want you to look around the room or something? I don't know. Like,
yeah, no, they wouldn't mention it at all. I mean, so much so to the point where sometimes the doctor would even forget it was there. It's something that they would put up there, like,
mm.
whenever, and forget that it was even there. And then patients would come to them and be like, yeah, I had this experience and this is what I saw.
Okay.
So they weren't necessarily prompting them
Okay.
to look for, or afterwards, they weren't asking for that information.
Interesting.
So that's some of the ways that we see that out of body experiences happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one that was like funny that he was talking about was a patient came out of surgery and said, in my experience when I was in surgery, I saw the doctor like waving his arms around like a chicken, which is not something that you see on TV. It's not something
Right.
that's typical for surgeons to be doing. So they kind of just like dismissed it, and they, went on with their interview process. And later, interviewing the doctor, they asked about this, and the doctor was like, yeah, that's what I did, because he was teaching his students. And so in order to prevent himself from going and like grabbing something or interrupting them, he would place his hands on his chest and point to things with his elbows.
Okay.
So the patient saw this in their out of body experience, and that was something that kind of just confirmed that this person was having the experience they were talking about.
Interesting.
So I kind of start with that to say that there is evidence that shows that these things happen, but it may look different or be spoken about differently depending on what you're looking at. And then one of the rabbit holes that I went down was this CIA report that was declassified in the early 2000s that was researching astral projection specifically. The Army was looking for ways to train soldiers to astral project for their own means. And this was like the only scientific research that I could find on astral projection specifically.
Okay.
So their idea was, if this is a thing, and they put it all in hypothetical, if this is a thing and we can do the research and find out that it's true, and then we can train our soldiers to do this, and that can be used for counterintelligence, basically.
Okay.
So that
like
was
they
yeah.
okay. Like they were like, okay, I can astral project to like over enemy lines and
Yeah.
watch what other people are doing. Oh my God, that would be interesting.
Yep. Find information, communicate with others. Like there was a whole thing about it. So,
Mm.
so I dove down this rabbit hole. And if you go to the CIA website, and there will be a link in the show notes, but for this specific one, if you go to the CIA website and look at this specific report, page 25 is missing.
Okay.
And from my understanding, plenty of people have asked for page 25 to be released, and then they say that they don't have it. They say to ask the Army. The Army says they don't have it. Like, everybody's like, we don't know what even is page 25.
There is no page 25.
Yeah, it never existed. I don't know. Which, is its own, like, weird thing.
Right. However,
the entire experiment was done from a third-party contractor. The Monroe Institute is the one who started to do this research, and then the Army got interested in it, and so, then everybody else jumped on board. So the Monroe Institute has the full report with page 25 included. And looking at it, I mean, so there's also a link to that, that you could look at the entire thing here, but looking at it, it doesn't seem like page 25 is some magical piece of, information. So I'm not really sure why it was so difficult to obtain.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, you can see the whole report. I looked at it. I read it. It took me a while to get through it. It's kind of very heavy on background info. The report is written from the perspective of, let me set up what each of these things are so that you can understand the process.
What we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So they acknowledge and understand there's research, and they understand that it is an achievable thing or something that someone can be trained to do. So how do we get into astral projection?
Yeah.
There are a couple of different ways, from what I've seen, that you could do this. So I'm just going to go through this way, and I'm going to try to do it in a broad sense, because one of the things that I was trying to do in practicing this is have an experience that is my own. And not to say that I don't want it to be similar to others, but I don't want to be influenced by that. So if someone tells me, hey, when I astral projected, this is what I saw, or this is what I did, or this is the steps that I took, I don't want to be put in a position where I'm just imagining somebody else's experience.
Right.
And then unsure if that is the experience that I'm having. So in the simplest form, a person can induce an advanced state of relaxation, establish flow between both hemispheres of the brain, and then stimulate the right hemisphere, and that will allow you to have an altered state of consciousness.
Sounds easy.
Right? So simple.
Okay, let me just do it.
We should all just jump right into this.
Right.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit more. So an advanced state of relaxation. We talk about this with meditation for sure. Some of the other things that you might want to try are yoga, hypnosis, binaural beat exposure, which we've talked about binaural beats in a previous episode. So being able to get to that advanced state of relaxation, it's not as simple as, hey, I'm feeling pretty relaxed right now. It is a simultaneous brain and body relaxation.
Okay.
You want to get to a state where you're more susceptible to having these types of experiences and to having a natural flow. What I was thinking in my own experience was I I know that meditation is not something that I'm like super well versed in, so I was trying not to go that way. So I did try to use like binaural beats instead to get me into that state. So the flow between the hemispheres of the brain, the left hemisphere of our brain is for logical thinking. That's where we have our, executive dysfunction, our thought processes and things like that, make decisions. Our right side of the brain is more creative. There's more of a flow of things there. And oftentimes what happens for people is that our left side of the brain will come on pretty strong and tell our right side of the brain what to do, what to think, how to behave. So the idea of having the flow is that you want to decrease the thoughts, you want to decrease the logical piece of the left side of the brain, you want to increase the creative and the flow of the right side, but you want to have both sides interacting coherently, pretty consistently, without any overtake from one side of the
domination
brain.
From one side to the other. Okay. How do you know that's happening?
That's a great question.
Like, I don't know what part of my brain is doing what,
So from an astral projection standpoint, I think that is where people will say, this is what you might experience or this is what you want to do. And I was trying to stay away from that. Personally, I was taking it from a somatic experience, which is the type of approach that I take to many things. It's the type of practitioner I am with, as a therapist and everything like that. So when I recognize that I'm thinking too much, I know that the left side of my brain is on. If I'm doing math problems, if I'm considering what things I'm going to say next, how I'm going to deliver information, how I'm interacting with the world, the thoughts that I'm having very much tell me how connected I am to the left side of my brain.
Okay.
From a somatic standpoint, I'm more trying to turn inwards. I don't want to think about, I just want to have this experience. I want to notice the experience that I'm having. I can notice that my fingertips are really cold right now because the air in this room is a little bit chillier. I can notice that I have the aftertaste of coffee on my mouth. That's not necessarily a thought that I'm having. It's an experience that I'm having.
Okay. So you're just you're more versed in this anyways. You tend to do this type of thing anyways. So that's how your approach.
Yeah, that's the approach that I've been taking for it. The podcasts and the information and everything that I was seeing did have ideas and specific written out prompts of like, this is what you can do, this is what you can experience. But like I said, I was just trying to avoid some of that. So the altered state of consciousness for the purposes of astral projection is kind of understood to be that state between wakefulness and sleep. So in the episode that we talked about dreaming and lucid dreaming, this is where this might come into play. And why binaural beats can be helpful, because the binaural beats help your brain to get to the right waves of that in-between state.
Are there any hertz that you're supposed to, did you see like specific hertz that help? Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to go back and listen to that episode that we talked about dreaming, and we talked about binaural beats, actually we did 2 episodes, because we did an episode with dreams and we did an episode with frequencies.
And meditation we talked about.
Yeah. Okay, so go back and listen to all the episodes. You should do that. Yes. So, but the binaural beats, when you're thinking about the state between wakefulness and sleep, that is the frequency that you want to get to. So I believe we talked about 4 hertz is somewhere in between wakefulness and sleep. That can be a really good one to get to. I'm going to talk about one more in a minute, but that's the idea between the wakefulness and sleep. So that state allows you to have more engagement with the experience that you're having, limiting the physical realm that you're in.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily super in tune, attached to, connected with, the things I see in front of me, the things I feel around me. The other part here is that you want to have your body to be relaxed, like I said before. And one of the ways to do that is trying to connect it with the frequency of the earth. So
Mm.
Earth's natural frequency is around 7.8 hertz, I believe, somewhere in
Okay.
the 7 realm.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be where you start. I want to get to that relaxed state. Let me do yoga, meditation, whatever. If I'm going to use binaural beats, let me start with that 7 hertz because
Mm-hmm.
that's the frequency of the earth, and that can help relax my body.
Okay.
And then I can dive deeper with that state in between wakefulness and sleep. So the other then piece of all this, you've relaxed your body, you've established a flow between the hemispheres of your brain, and now you're entering an altered state of consciousness. The astral realm is thought of to be very similar to our physical realm because it layers our physical realm. So you have the physical, the etheric, and then the astral. So in some sense, it is, this microphone in front of me is in the astral realm as well. This pen in front of me, my coffee, this, every single thing is
Mm-hmm.
also there. Every person is there. Every place is there. And while that is all true, it is also very different in that in our physical realm, things have come to a physical solid state. So I can
Mm-hmm.
hold, I can, experience.
Mm-hmm.
In the astral realm, it is less solid.
Mm-hmm.
So things may not look exactly the same. Things may be jumbled up. They may be in different places. They may be, from different perspectives. You may see something that you can see in a solid state. If I saw a cube in front of me right now, I could see all 6 sides of the cube. In the astral realm, maybe that looks more elongated. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
looks more large. Maybe it looks different
Mm-hmm.
because there is no physicality to it, and there's no
Yeah.
space time.
Yeah, so we're seeing its energy, we're not seeing its
Yeah,
physical form.
yeah.
Got it.
So in that sense, it's important to understand that you may encounter things in the astral realm that you would not encounter in the physical realm, especially if you're talking about specific energies, spirits, beings, entities, things like that. And or you may encounter things that you would encounter in the physical realm, but they may look very different, and that could be disorienting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm just like envisioning, you ever watch Lord of the Rings?
mm-hmm.
And like they put the ring on and like they go into that
Yeah,
other and they can see everything's like
yep.
like it's all like distorted and then like he could see things that other people can't see in different colors. That's what I'm like envisioning. I'm like Frodo right now.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to kind of imagine that because it can be, so overwhelming and it can be so eye opening. There's so
Hmm.
much to experience all at once.
Hmm.
Um, so, receiving information, translating information may be a challenge. It may be something that you need to overcome if you're going to practice
Hmm.
astral projection because there can be other energies, entities, spirits in the astral realm. And you are trying to visit that space, maybe for the first time, it may be something completely new. You want to make sure that you're doing that from a protected space. So you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up to be protected as you would in any
Hmm.
experience. I believe we've talked about this before, but if I'm doing my cleansing rituals at the end of the day, I'm making sure that I'm releasing, but I'm also protecting at the same time. I'm also
Hmm.
making sure that I have my bubble around me to stay protected from things that are not meant for
Hmm.
me, that things are not of my highest good, from things that I am not intending to interact with.
Hmm.
There's this idea, and I think this is pretty interesting. There's this idea that because everything exists all at once in the astral realm, and there is no time or space, an experience in the astral realm can be left in the astral realm.
Okay.
I'm going to try to expand upon that a little bit.
Hmm.
So the idea is if I am having an encounter in the astral realm, if I am having a conversation with an ancestor, a spirit guide, an entity, whatever, that stays there in that I'm going to say space, but there is no
Hmm.
space. There is no time
Yeah.
space. But it stays in that. It's kind of contained there. So if someone else comes to visit that same entity, my experience is also there.
Okay.
Because
So like
there's
your energy is just that. Okay. I'm
it's
like
a
trying to think
little
about
like
this. Yeah.
mind-boggling to consider.
So it's almost like it keeps replaying.
It kind of just, yeah, it's kind of layered there. So
Mm-hmm.
that can also make it challenging to decipher certain or interpret certain messages, because if you're receiving messages that are intertwined with somebody else's experience,
Mm-hmm.
you have to pick apart what am I trying to take from this versus what somebody else might have left there.
So this reminds me of an episode I was listening to on Morbid. They were
Mm-hmm.
doing listener tales, and I don't, if you're not familiar with Morbid, it's a podcast they talked about, and they have people send in stories sometimes, and this was
Mm-hmm.
one of those times. And it was talking about this person had gone to this other realm, I guess, and they visited this town, and like they described this whole town with the clock tower, and they met this person and they could see this thing and the roads look like this. And then they told their friend about it. Their friend went into like this meditative state as well, saw the same thing, and they were able to interact with each other
Mm-hmm.
in this realm, and they did this often. And like they lived miles and miles apart, like they lived like 100 miles apart, but they
Mm-hmm.
would meet in this place. And other people had written in about this same place
Mm-hmm.
and had described it like the clock tower and this particular
Yeah.
bread shop and like the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that was what was happening, is that they were astral projecting to a specific place that is still there.
Yeah. That is, I think that's a pretty cool experience, but
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what I'm talking about here is like people can, and there's lots of people that talk about, I'm astral projecting and meeting someone somewhere. Someone else is also astral projecting to that. Or I'm leaving messages for somebody in a certain place or something like that. So it's just being mindful of what you're encountering, because as much as you may be familiar with some of what you're going to experience, there's a whole lot that you may not be familiar with.
Yeah, this sounds scary, but awesome at the same time. But like I'd be afraid of what I was picking up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what was I looking at? What messages was I trying to get? Like
Yeah.
who's leaving what?
I think that's why the emphasis on like how you protect yourself is so important. You want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for having the most protected experience that you can. As
Mm-hmm.
much as this is something that you can travel to places you've never been in the physical realm. You can see things that you've never seen in the physical realm. If I want to go to the Great Wall of China, I could do that in the astral realm. As far as I'm aware,
Mm-hmm.
that's what you can experience. But doing that from a place of protection is super important, so that you're not picking up energies or entities that you do not want to, so that you're not
Mm-hmm.
interacting with energies or entities that you do not want to experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that you're not sending out that beacon that we've talked about in previous
Mm-hmm.
episodes. Like, I don't want everyone to know, or everything to know, that I'm just here and open and
Right.
come
No,
visit
don't
me.
come.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So being able to set yourself up protectedly, and looks similar to what it would, here you want to have your rituals in place, that you're setting yourself up for protection before going into this space.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one thing, I was like trying to like really condense all of that. The one thing that I did want to know as kind of a side note, and I was gonna try to incorporate this more in this episode, and it just wasn't clicking right. I just wanted to make a side note on lucid dreaming. Some
Mm-hmm.
people believe that lucid dreaming is a form of astral projection, and some believe that they are very different.
Mm-hmm.
From my understanding, if you're looking at it as though they are the same, lucid dreaming would be an altered state of consciousness, but you are staying contained in that dream state. Whereas astral projection, you are traveling wherever.
Yeah.
There is definitely a level of awareness that happens to both. There is definitely that altered state, that state between wakefulness and sleep that happens in both.
Mm-hmm.
But typically you're not leaving that dream or dream state when you're in lucid dreaming. And this is something that I have experienced, and I've talked about that before. It's something that I have done frequently, do frequently,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not always intentional. It's not always intentional that I don't go into sleep thinking I'm going to lucid dream tonight. It
Right.
is intentional in that moment that, hey, I don't want to be dreaming about this anymore. Let me
Mm-hmm.
change the scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I could see where people say it's the same, but I feel it's way different. I think one is a subconscious thing, one is a realm thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make the difference because I guess it basically is subconscious in both
Mm-hmm.
ways, but a different level of subconscious.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. The way that I picture it is you are going through the same gate. Like this gate is going to get you to the other side, but what's on that other side may look different depending on which way
Mm-hmm.
you go. So I'm going through the gate and I'm going left. That's for lucid dreaming. I'm going through the gate and going right. That's for astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
So totally different, but very similar.
Yeah.
One of the things that um, can tie them together or pull them apart is the amount of memory that you have about that experience. Even with lucid dreaming, you may have memory of certain parts of it, but not all of it. Whereas astral projection, because it is an intentional experience, you are recalling much more details. You are recalling
Mm-hmm.
much more memory and maybe even picking up things from the experience that you had while astral projecting that aren't part of, your dream. It's
Mm-hmm.
somebody else's experience that you could be taking with you.
So when with you said there's no time or like place or whatever,
Yeah.
can you astral project to the past? Like can you see people in the past, I guess? Or is it all kind of like more what's happening at the moment?
So I'm going to say two things. One, and I think with any of this, really, anything that has to do with astral projection or the metaphysical experience, I don't have like a clear cut answer to that. And because I
Mm-hmm.
haven't fully experienced it myself, I couldn't say this is, from my experience, this is what it's been.
Mm-hmm.
The flip side, though, there is no time space. And what people have reported is that, yeah, everything converges all at once. So you can experience something from the past, our physical realm past, but in the astral realm, it's not the past, it is all at the same time.
Well, I guess you said you could still have experiences from other people that have astral projected. So I
Yeah,
guess there's kind of like stays there.
yeah,
So I guess you could potentially interact with something that happened already, but it's not necessarily that you went to the past,
right.
if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
that would be a clearer way of putting it because there is no time. So you're not past, present, future. It just is. And there is no space. It's not like the way that I was understanding it as I was reading about it with as far as space is concerned. Like, yes, this room has an astral realm, but there is no space in that this room is here in this house, in this town, but it is also not.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
just is.
Right,
It could be
right.
floating around because there's no space.
Yeah.
So,
Very interesting.
yeah.
Very interesting. I feel like I need to know more.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like I went through a lot of information in this episode and there was even more that I didn't share. There were more articles that I read, there were more podcasts that I listened to, there were more books that I reviewed. Like I went down such a big rabbit hole with this.
Maybe we need to revisit this in more depth at
Yeah.
another
I
time.
When I can get to the point where I'm confident that I'm like astral projecting, yeah, I'll bring it back up. We'll see how
Oh
it
yeah,
goes.
that'd be interesting. That'd be
But
cool.
so I have tried to do it on three separate occasions since starting to do this research. And only because, I mean, I think if it was not that if it was up to me, I think if circumstances were right, I'd probably try to do this every night.
Mm-hmm.
But circumstances aren't always right. And by that, I mean, sometimes I'm just too worked up from the day and I don't feel like I could get into a relaxed state.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm too drained from the day and I don't feel like I could protect myself enough.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the conditions just aren't right. Like I'm ready to go to bed and my entire house is awake, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, something else may be going on that is just not the right time for me to do it. So I've only tried on 3 occasions. And all 3 times, I was able to get that experience that I was talking about, which I very much recognize as me accessing the etheric realm,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing the etheric realm much more vividly than I have in the past, um, but just not getting too much further. And that might be because sometimes, like, I just fell asleep. I'm like, okay,
Well, yeah.
my entire brain is going offline. My entire body's going offline now. And the one time that I tried to do it, like, during the day, I just couldn't get past that point. So you have to find the sweet spot.
Yeah, like the middle ground. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely.
So, but there
Something to
was,
practice.
yeah, yeah. There was one, I didn't write it down. I didn't put it in my notes. I'll find it. But there was one podcast that was like a 2 hour long thing, and they had a whole meditation
Mm.
on how do you get into this. So maybe that's something. I think I got like a half hour into it before
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's it.
Do you have to have like an intention that like I want to go here or I like do you know?
I don't know. I don't think
Or that I just
so.
need to get into I just want to go to the ethereal realm and see what happens. Like,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I don't think you need to have a specific intention as to what you want to experience. I mean, I think that can be helpful because it'll help you to get there as opposed to who knows what. But I don't think that it's a requirement just because you may not know what you're going to experience. So unless you want to experience something very specific, like personally, I don't want to experience something very specific.
Mhm.
At least not at the moment. I just want to
Mhm.
know that I can access it and then
Right.
look for specific experiences. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I learned a lot because I know nothing about astral projection other than like very, very little. But
Yeah.
um
I didn't know much about it either. And then I started to dive in, and I really thought like, okay, this is going to be a quick little, a quick little episode with
mhm.
some short facts and that's it. And I was not prepared. No.
I would love to hear if someone has astral projected before and like
Mm-hmm.
what their story was. I would love to hear that. So if you
Yes.
want to send us a message or comment or whatever, I'd love to hear it.
Do.
Um,
Please, please do. If you have had that experience, I want to know more. I want to know what it was like. So definitely let us know. You can
mhm.
reach out. Um, and if you haven't and are interested in, the links that will be in the show notes are great starting points. I think great starting points to just do a little bit of your own research and to jump into your own experience and see where it takes you.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll have to do like a
Mm-hmm.
or come back around to this again, an updated
Yeah,
one.
we'll
So
follow up.
yeah. All right. Cool. Love it. Well, I guess we're gonna end for now, and then we'll see what else we got.
Yeah, see you guys next time.
All right. See ya.